everyone. Today I am going to teach you human brain. So brain is the most delicate organ in our body. It has double protection. First, it is protected in the bony box, which is known as cranium, and second protection is its protective layers or protective covering, which is known as meninges. So the brainy box is cranium and the protective covering is meninges. One mark, very important. Name the protective covering of brain. So it is meninges. Name the viral infection of these meninges. It is meningitis. So there are three layers. The meninges is divided into three layers. So the outermost layer is known as dura mater. The middle layer is known as arachnoid mater, and the innermost layer is known as pia mater. Again, it is the brain has the protective covering, which is known as meninges, and meninges are divided into three subparts or sublayers. That is from out inside. It is dura mater, arachnoid mater, pia mater, or we can say pia mater or pia mater, as you wish. Now these are the three layers, and in these three layers there are two gaps. So these gaps are known as the gap between the dura mater and arachnoid mater, that is known as subdural space, and the gap between the arachnoid mater and pia mater, that is known as subarachnoid space. So there are three layers, and three layers has two gaps, and in this gap there is a fluid. And what is the name of this fluid? It is CSF, that is Cerebro Spinal fluid. Again, very important for 1 mark. The outermost layer is dura mater. It is very hard because it has to protect it is basically the protective covering of the brain. The middle layer hai, that is known as arachnoid mater. It is a spider's web like a thing. And the innermost layer is pia mater, which gives protection as well as nourishment to the brain. And the fluid is known as cerebro spinal fluid. The infection is known as meningitis. So three important questions. Name the covering of the brain, outer protective covering of the brain, meninges. Name the infection or the inflammation of meninges, that is meningitis. And name the fluid present inside the space or the two cavities of the brain, that is cerebrospinal fluid. And what is the volume of the cerebrospinal fluid? It is almost 120, like roughly 120 ml. It is roughly 120 to 150 ml actually, but you can write 120 ml, approximately 120 ml. Okay, so I have drawn the diagram of this brain. I have talked about the outer protective covering. So in the diagram you can see this is dura mater, the outer one. This middle one is arachnoid mater, and innermost is pia mater, and together these are known as meninges. Now brain is divided into three parts. What are the three parts of brain? It is forebrain, midbrain, hindbrain. In forebrain we have again some parts like cerebrum, then we have olfactory lobe and diencephalon. Again it is cerebrum, olfactory lobe and diencephalon. So I'll talk about the cerebrum. So this part is the cerebrum. It is the largest part of the brain. Cerebrum is the largest part of the brain. They have asked many times in 1 mark. Name the largest part of the brain. Cerebrum. It is like this. So cerebrum has got a median longitudinal fissure, and this median longitudinal fissure divides it into two cerebral hemisphere, the left cerebral hemisphere and the right cerebral hemisphere. So there is a medial longitudinal fissure. Just imagine just like a walnut. So there is a walnut, there is a line in between, and then it divides into the two hemisphere. So the left and the right cerebral hemisphere. There is a thin sheet. This is a thin sheet of corpus callosum. So in the cerebrum, there is a thin sheet of fiber which is known as corpus callosum. Now what is corpus callosum? First, it connects the two cerebral hemisphere. And what is the function of this corpus callosum? It takes the information from one cerebral hemisphere to the another cerebral hemisphere. That is, it communicates between the right and the left cerebral hemisphere. Second thing which is important in cerebrum has ridges and grooves. which are known as gyri and sulci. So the ridges are known as gyri and the grooves are known as sulci. These gyri and sulci basically they form the ridges, and if you extend them they have convolutions, and if you extend them, the more the surface area, the more IQ level a person has. So the IQ level, that is the intelligence quotient of a person, depends on the convolutions of the gyri and sulci. Okay, now the outer part of the cerebrum, it has got an outer part and it has got a inner part. The outer portion is known as cortex and the inner portion is known as medulla. Again, very important, the outer part is cortex and the inner part is known as medulla. Now there is a matter which is arranged in the cerebrum. The outer part, that is the cortex part, it has grey matter, and the inner part, that is medulla, it has got white matter. So the outer part of the brain is, or the cerebrum basically, it has the grey matter, whereas the inner part has the white matter. Again, very important, they ask the arrangement of grey matter and white matter of cerebrum. So again, wind up the cerebrum. First, largest part of the brain. Second, it has gyri and sulci, that is ridges and the grooves. The outer part is cortex. The middle part is medulla. The outer arrangement is grey matter. The inner arrangement is white matter. There's a thin sheet of fibers which is known as corpus callosum, which connects the two cerebral hemispheres. Very important, corpus callosum, they ask the location and they ask the function of corpus callosum. So this is my cerebrum. Is it clear? Okay, next part is, I'll talk about the cerebellum. Now, what is cerebellum? Cerebellum is also known as little brain. What is cerebellum known as? Little brain. And cerebellum also has the arrangement white inside and the grey matter outside. So the grey matter is out and the white matter is inside, and it merges and gives a tree-like, branching like structure. See, this is cerebellum in the diagram. So it merges and appears like a branching tree. So that is cerebellum. And the third part is known as medulla. What is the full name of medulla? Medulla oblongata. So if they ask in one marker, please don't write just medulla. You have to write the full name, medulla oblongata, because they have asked many times one markers. Now, what is medulla oblongata? It is the posterior part. This part of the brain is medulla oblongata. A sudden blow to this part may lead death of a person. This is very important. Give reasoning, which they have asked many times. A sudden blow to medulla may lead to death. Why? Why it is? Because medulla oblongata is responsible for carrying out all the vital and non-vital involuntary activities. Now, what I mean by vital and non-vital? Vital involuntary activities are like breathing, then peristalsis, vasoconstriction, vasodilation. These are all vital but involuntary activities. And what are non-vital involuntary? Non-vital involuntary will have sneezing, coughing, vomiting. So these three reflexes are non-vital, but again they are involuntary, which is handled by medulla oblongata. Now let us discuss the functions of all these three parts. Cerebrum, which was the largest part, it is a seat of intelligence, logical reasoning, memory, thinking. It is responsible for all voluntary activity. Who is responsible for all voluntary activity? It is the cerebrum. And all those things like subconscious mind, you must have heard, hypnotism, all these are also linked with cerebrum. A person can hypnotize another person, and he or she can reveal the past experiences. So that is also done with the cerebrum. Okay, cerebellum. Cerebellum is linked with posture, equilibrium, and all muscular coordination. So walking, jogging, cycling, bicycling, swimming, all these activities, all these muscular activity is taken care by the cerebellum. So you must have heard an alcoholic person or a drunkard person, he walks clumsily. He walks very clumsily. Why he walks clumsily? Because alcohol affects your cerebellum part of the brain. And what is cerebellum responsible for? The muscular coordination and posture. So he walks unsteadily. Okay, so drinking and driving is dangerous. You have heard about this, because the drinking part affects your cerebellum and it gives diplopia, that is the double vision, and it gives unsteadily or clumsily walk of a person. So Cerebellum is responsible for your muscular coordination, posture and equilibrium. Third is medulla oblongata. Medulla oblongata is responsible for carrying out all the vital and non-vital involuntary activities. So these are the three important part of the brain. Now, how do they ask these parts in the exam? Let us discuss. Now, I will teach you how to draw the diagram of brain. It looks very complex, but I will teach you with a very easy technique. So first of all, you have to reveal these parts in the diagram. So this part is cerebrum. This full part, this is cerebrum. Okay, now this is cerebellum. This is your medulla oblongata, and this continues with the spinal cord. Now this part, this is your midbrain, and this is your hindbrain. Sorry, this is your forebrain, and this is your hindbrain. So it is forebrain, then midbrain and hindbrain. Okay, so these are the divisions of brain. So then ask cerebrum, cerebellum and medulla oblongata. These are the things which they normally ask, and then they will ask you 1, 2, 3, they'll label, and then they ask what are these parts, and second they ask about the functions. Now we'll talk about the midbrain. I have talked about the forebrain, which is this part. Now I am talking about the midbrain. Now what is the specialty of midbrain? Midbrain just carries your eye and ear coordination. Eye and ear coordination is handled with the help of midbrain. See, I'll give you one example. If suppose you are going through a forest or through a jungle or through a very dark street, let's say. So you're just passing by, and then suddenly you hear some hissing sound, or maybe a barking of a dog. So barking of a dog or a hissing sound will be taken by your ear and obviously with your brain. So this is a ear and brain coordination. So you do like this. You do like this. So that is ear and your brain coordination, which is handled by midbrain. Second example is, if suppose you are watching a lawn tennis match or a table tennis match maybe. So what kind of action you do? You see the ball going there, then there, then there, then there. This coordination, this is what? This is your eye and brain coordination. Again, it is handled by your midbrain. So that is midbrain. And the last part is hindbrain. Hindbrain is, medulla oblongata and bones. We have already discussed medulla oblongata functions. Now there's one more important thing here, that is hypothalamus and pituitary gland and pineal gland. So there are three glands which are linked with the brain, which I'll talk in my next chapter, endocrine system. Hypothalamus and pituitary. Pituitary gland is known as master's gland, and masters of master gland is known as hypothalamus. And what is pineal gland? It maintains your sleep and wake cycle. So only this much we'll talk here about the glands. Rest I'll cover it in my endocrine system. Now the last thing, one marker and dictation is left. So first of all, write the dictation part. First write cerebrum, cerebellum, medulla oblongata. Write all the three words. Then you write hypothalamus, then pituitary gland, then pia mater, arachnoid mater, dura mater. Meninges, important hai. Corpus callosum. Okay, cerebro spinal fluid. Okay, so these are few dictation words. It's very easy, not very tough. Then one marker mein you should know how to draw the diagram. I will teach you that. So drawing of a diagram is important. Second thing, the labeling part. Labeling mein they ask meninges. So they can give you here anywhere layers. So this is meninges. If they have given you 3 arrows, then he is asking all the 3 layers. Okay, so dura mater, arachnoid mater, pia mater, and then this is meninges. Second labeling, they can ask cerebrum, largest part of the brain, cerebrum. Little brain, or a part of a brain which helps in muscular coordination, cerebellum. Cerebrum, cerebellum. Please mind with your pronunciation and with your dictation part. And the last, a part of a brain which is responsible for carrying out all the vital involuntary activity, that is medulla oblongata. So a thin sheet of fibers which connects the two cerebral hemisphere, corpus callosum. So these are few questions which they normally ask in the exam. In my next lecture, I will continue the nervous system with the spinal cord and reflex section. And then I'll start with my endocrine system. So till then, bye, take care.